A very good morning to all of you. From today onwards, I will be uploading notes for your paper, Crossing the Borders, Malayalam Literature in English Translation. We will begin with the first chapter that we discussed. It's a very important chapter, that is Amphibious Life by Santhosh Aechikkanam. I will discuss all the questions, short answers, paragraph questions and essay questions. So let's begin with the short answer questions. The first question is, what made the frog run for his life? Answer. The frog runs for his life once he sees a snake rushing at him. Death was within striking distance from him, and survival was the only thought on his mind. Now moving on to the second question. What happened to the water snake and the frog after the collision? Answer. After the collision, the water snake and the frog fall into a deep well. It was an old abandoned well with water up to a man's height and was almost hidden from the sight by wild vegetation. Now the third question. Why did the snake compare the frog to his uncle's daughter to the food chain? Answer. The snake compares the frog to his uncle's daughter in the biological food chain. In the food chain, the snake is a predator because it eats frogs. Now moving on to the fourth question. Why does the frog say life is more than hunger? Answer. The frog says that life is more than hunger because once the snake eats him out, he will be left alone in loneliness without a companion. Hunger is an instantaneous feeling, but life ahead really needs the presence of a companion, at least to listen to one's voice. Now moving on to the fifth question. How did the snake survive in the well without eating the frog? Answer. The snake survives in the well by eating some insects and leaves. This idea was suggested to him by the frog, who was using it as a method to escape from the snake. Now the sixth question. What was the daring adventure to the other side of destiny done by the frog? Answer. The daring adventure to the other side of his destiny was the courage the frog could store up to kill the snake. The frog opens his mouth wide and takes the snake's head inside his mouth to suffocate and kill him. Now the seventh question. Which was the best piece of meat covered according to the photograph? Answer. The reporter sees two born enemies together in a tight embrace, the snake and the frog. So he shouts at his reporter friend and says that it is the best piece of meat he has got ever to cover. Now moving on to the eighth question. How did the dead body boost the frog's morale and hope? Answer. The dead body boosts the morale and hope of the frog because he thought to use it as a cover from the sudden attacks of the snake. More than that, the frog suggests the body of the dead woman as an option for the snake's lust for food. Now the ninth question. How did the snake rediscover his carnivorous menu? Answer. The snake rediscovers his carnivorous menu when a chameleon was slipped off and fell into the well. Without wasting a second, the snake eats him and enjoys the taste of blood. Now the last question. Why was the snake reluctant at first in consuming the dead body? Answer. The snake is reluctant at first in consuming the dead body because he considers it a sin. Snakes are used to hunt and eat live creatures, and they never eat any dead ones. Now we will move on to the essay questions because I have included three paragraph questions within the essay itself, so it will be easy for you to prepare for the exam. So let's see the essay questions. The first one: the time spent by the frog and a snake in the well is a representation of institutionalized family. Discuss. Second question: no philosophy can distance one's existential instincts. Elucidate. Third question: comment on the narrative excellence of Aechikkanam in handling the side-by-side portrayal of human-animal world. The fourth question: discuss the phenomenon of the hunted becoming the hunter in the struggle for existence. The fifth question: discuss the story Amphibious life as an allegory. Now we will discuss the answers. Before discussing the answer, you please note the idea how I have included the paragraph question answers within the essay itself. See, the second paragraph of the essay is the answer of paragraph questions 1 and 3 from the textbook. The third paragraph of the essay is the answer of paragraph question number 2 from the textbook. And the fourth paragraph of the essay is the answer of paragraph question number 5 from the textbook. So when we come to the paragraph, I will mention the question. So introduction paragraph of the essay. Let's begin with the introduction. There are hunters and there are victims, but it is with a discipline, cunning, and alertness that one decides if one has to become a hunter or a victim. Santhosh Aechikkanam, who was born in 1971's story Amphibious Life, is an allegorical story which illustrates this point. Family as a gendered institution is the central idea in the story. The frog at first appears as a victim, but towards the end emerges as a hunter. The frog in the story Amphibious Life is more cunning than the snake. It shows us that life has meaning even in a meaningless situation. Now we will move on to the second paragraph of the essay. So as I said, the second paragraph of the essay is the answer of paragraph question number 1 and 3 from the textbook. So let's see what is paragraph question number 1. Paragraph question number 1 is: what are the assumptions that can be derived about the dead body from the story? The third question is: discuss the significance of the title Amphibious Life. So let's move on to the answer. The title is the first introduction to any story. This is very true when we take the case of Santhosh Aechikkanam's short story Amphibious Life. The title is very important when we discuss the story Amphibious Life. In the story, the frog and the snake represent the institutionalized family. The title is symbolic in many ways. Amphibians are creatures which live in both land and water. They are the smallest creatures with a backbone. In the story, it is represented by the frog. The frog in turn represents the woman who lives outside the well. Just like the frog living under the hungry eyes of the snake, the woman lives under the protection of her husband. To the outside world and in the eyes of the cameraman, the snake and the frog appear as role models who together form a perfect family. But in reality, the frog lives in fear of being eaten out at any moment by the snake. This is the same case of the woman who lives outside the well with her husband. When the lady in the story falls down to the well, we see that she has completed her amphibious life cycle, living both in land and the water. The snake in her life, here it is her husband, has eaten her out. In the family, he always comes above her in importance, just like the snake comes above the frog in the biological food chain. A woman always appears as an amphibian, living in land and water, and finally will be eaten out by the snakes in her life. Same has happened to the woman in the story. She is brutally killed by the man and is thrown into the well. The roles and definitions of gender and its implications have been and still are complex. Oftentimes, it is confusing depending on the circumstances. We live in a world where men are told to be masculine and women are told to be feminine. Those who do not do as they are told will have to suffer the social consequences. Now we will move on to the third paragraph of the essay. As I said, the third paragraph of the essay is the answer of paragraph question number 2 from the textbook. Let's read that question. What are the different arguments made by the frog to escape from being eaten by the snake? Answer. In the battle of existence, talent is the punch. In amphibious life, the frog really reveals his talent in conversation. Through his planned strategy, he gets the snake's attention to listen to him. Once he assures the snake's attention, he comes up with some vital truths about life. He says that in life, hunger is not the most important matter. He asks the snake, "But what will be your fate after I am gone? Have you considered that?" Life is more than hunger because once the snake eats him out, he will be left alone in loneliness without a companion. Hunger is an instantaneous feeling, but life ahead really needs the presence of a companion, at least to listen to one's voice. So if at all the snake eats him out, he will be fated to spend the remaining life in the well. But at that time, there will be no one to console him. If he tries to escape to the outside world, he will be plunged down more and more into the mud of the well. So the frog compares the place to the eye pit of a dead man where there is no hope of a survival. He suggests that if the snake feels that much hungry, he can eat the insects and leaves in the well. Perhaps he might feel it disgusting at first, but slowly he will get used to it. So the frog concludes the matter by pointing out the importance of a compromise with one's diet. Through this strategy, we see how cunning the frog really is in manipulating different situations in his own favor. His is the choice to survive, which is a basic drive in us all. This becomes complete when the story finishes. Here, he takes all the situations to his own favor and even alters the laws of the food chain. He kills the snake rather than being killed by the snake. Now we will move on to the fourth paragraph of the essay. The fourth paragraph of the essay is also the answer of paragraph question number 5 from the textbook. So paragraph question number 5 is, how did the frog win the battle of life and death? Answer. The world is ruled by the force of change. In amphibious life, we see that the hunted is forced to take up the role of the hunter. In the story, the frog takes up the dare to simply survive. He understands an important lesson from the family who live outside the well. If he doesn't kill the hunter snake, his fate will also end up just like the fate of the woman in the family. He will ultimately be killed by the snake when it grows mad with hunger. So the frog approaches the sleeping snake to carry out a courageous act. The daring adventure to the other side of his destiny was the courage the frog could store up to kill the snake. The writer says, nothing really mattered to him anymore. All he wanted just then was to shake off this monster of death from his life. The frog opens his mouth wide and it takes the snake's head inside his mouth to suffocate and kill him. The snake struggled very hard, but the frog tightened its jaws. His eyes popped out big as planet Earth itself. His breath seemed to stop. Still the frog decided to stand hard till the snake dies. It really understands a lesson from the dead body of the woman that in the choices of life we should be valiant rather than meek. The knowledge of the fate of the woman is something that propels him to the ultimatum. Through this act, he proves that to survive means to find some meaning in the suffering. Now we will move on to the concluding paragraph of the essay, the last paragraph. We have to conclude the essay. The life of inner peace is the best type of existence. The frog in the story Amphibious Life proves this amply. The frog in the story Amphibious Life is very optimistic. The story is really an allegory which shows us that life has meaning, is a reason to live. The frog chooses to live his life rather than get killed by his enemy. One's brain is one's ultimate weapon. With the right use of one's brain, a victim can turn out to be a hunter. We should remember that life is a battle to survive. Now we have finished discussing the essay question and also short answer question, and we have included 4 paragraph questions within the essay itself. Now we will move on to the remaining 1 paragraph question. Before discussing this paragraph question, I would love to remind you that when you write essays for the exam, you have to include at least 2 quotations. So when you write for the exam, an essay should have at least 2 quotations. Or if you are not able to do that, at least 1 quotation should be there. Otherwise, you can't really hope that you have really cemented the answer with the best possible chances of getting the marks. So I'm allowed to tell you this because after writing the essay without the quotations, when you find that you have really not got what you really deserve, you can't accuse the person who has checked the answers, because an authenticity to the answer will come once you include quotation. Only when you include a quotation, the answer will get an authenticity. Because of course you can say anything in a paragraph, you can say anything and everything, but when you got the right words directly from the writer, you really calls authenticity to the answer. So I will tell you, do the same. And even in a paragraph question, if a paragraph question ആണെങ്കിൽ പോലും എന്ത് ചെയ്യണം, we should try to include a very small quotation, ഒരു ചെറിയൊരു quotation, വലിയ quotation വേണമെന്നില്ല. We should include a small quotation. And now we will move on to the paragraph question. So the remaining paragraph question, that is the 4th question. Why the snake is called Willy? Answer. Every man of action has a strong dose of egoism, pride, and cunning. One's greatest cunning lies in covering up what looks like cunning. In this short story, Amphibious Life, at first the snake appears as a creature of action and the frog appears as a victim. The snake is called Willy, which means cunning. The frog feels so when the snake tries to eat him out under the pretext of catching a passing water bug. The snake had already rediscovered his carnivorous menu when a chameleon had slipped off and fell into the well. Without wasting a second, the snake eats him and enjoys the taste of blood. The snake's vegetarian taste suddenly became a thing of the past. He began to eye at the frog with an unconcealed desire. This destroyed the frog's peace of mind. Then, when he got a chance, the snake tries to catch the frog under the pretext of catching a passing water bug. It was by mere luck that the frog could escape. The willy snake then apologized as if it was an accident. But from the eyes of the snake, the frog could clearly see what had been his intention. The frog understands the cunningness of the snake and so feels that the snake is willy. But towards the end of the story, we see the frog outsmarts the snake and emerges as the winner. The battle of survival was so crucial to him that he could have been nothing else but willy too. The writer seems to pass a good message to women in general that they have to choose their life. But this act of choosing should be to be the ruler of her own life than to be ruled by someone else. Now we have discussed all the question, paragraph, short answers and essays from the chapter Amphibious Life. In the next class, we will also continue the same. We will come up with some other chapters and discuss the questions.